Well, God is good, and that's a new one, a very brand new one from the studios of Reverend Ella Duncan Williams, and so you want to go stream it as well and enjoy. This one is better late than never, right? Alexis calling Sir. Today's your birthday. You're celebrating your birthday. Alexis calling Sir. Alexis is my... is the official Baba of Palace Barber Shop, and so Collins, today's your birthday. Celebrate grace. Make sure that you pray to God that He sustains your life, and make sure that you also do His commandment in His will. He will come through for you as always. And so happy birthday to you, Alexis Collins, sir. Well, let's get on to an issue. I want us to discuss this, and let's do it dispassionately. It could happen to anyone. And anyone could also become victims of circumstance, victims of people who want to revenge or avenge people's doing. Yesterday, particularly in the evening, I saw a message of a lady writing something on the status, and something that read of, smacked of some distress. And so when I quickly contacted, he said, look, the GM or the CEO of the company is sexually harassing me. And now she's torn in between, okay, now they are going to do it till you agree to their dictates or you are sacked off. Look, we cannot pretend that sexual harassment issues are not happening at several places, workplaces, in schools most especially. Where lecturers, teachers, tutors are taking advantage. Sexual predators are taking advantage of women. And so when we chance on some of these things, we want to look at the merit and what the situation is all about. Because look, largely it could be your daughter. You may think that you don't care about it. It could be your daughter, it could be your sister, where people are just ready to take advantage of them. And so that's why I want us to have a discussion. And owing to that particular one, one that has to do with the University of Ghana, Legon, and some of the steps that they've taken these few days. There is some 16 or 17 names that have been published by the Office of the Registrar. The notice is students and employing sanctioned for misconduct. Reference is made to the decision of the academic board that the names of employees and students sanctioned for disciplinary misconduct should be published. The following have recently been sanctioned for various offenses, and it includes quite a number of them. People like Francis Abdul Razak engaging in plagiarism. So people who copied, people who go and dab things from the internet, or people you could have, University of Ghana can suspend you for 2 academic years in accordance with the section 45 1G of the statutes of the University of Ghana. The thesis, your thesis will be failed just like it's done here. But if you go to 17, which is of course the last one, that is where some of these things become interesting. Dr. Samson Obed appear, sexual harassment, contrary to Section 11A of the Sexual Harassment and Misconduct Policy and Section 10 of the Code of Conduct of Academic Staff. This is what is going to happen. That's a staff. He's the only person. 1, issue a formal written apology to the complainant. 2, suspension from the university for 2 semesters, the second semester of the 2024-2025 academic year and the first semester of the 2025-2026 academic year. 3, you are barred from submitting an application for promotion to the next highest grade for 1 year following the end of the suspension period. 4, to undergo training on sexual harassment and misconduct to be conducted by the Anti-Sexual Harassment Committee. The sanctions are in line with Section 15 of the Code of Conduct for Academic Staff. Have you ever been engaged in these issues of sexual harassment? Was it by a teacher? Was it by a relative? Was it by your boss at work? whether male or female. Let's get into the University of Ghana matters. Probably when we have time, we'll open the phone lines. Frederick Brooks is a youth activist who's got a lot to talk about when you find yourself in the university and how these things go. And so let's get into the merit, shall we? Frederick joins us via Zoom. Let's get in touch with him. Frederick, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Koku. A lovely morning to you and the rest of our viewers, and a very good morning as well to Bishop Richard Boachi, who is the head pastor of Kingdom Covenant Family Church, with his first lady, Augustine Boachi, who are currently, tuning into the program and listening. Okay. I mean, they take keen interest in some of these matters, and that is why I deem it fit to, give them that kind of acknowledgement this morning. So it's a lovely morning.
Right.
And yes, Coco, I can hear you.
Absolutely. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Absolutely. Let's start off with this. How rampant and frequent are some of these cases, especially ones that have come? I'm not glossing over the issues of plagiarism and misconduct, but the sexual harassment thing, as much as we hear a lot of people talk about it, how often do we discover these things happening for which people are punished? To this tune where Dr. Samson Obeda Apia has been caught in this particular web.
Well, Kweku, I'll say good morning once again. And I think that it's really a very good question that you've just asked. And listening to conversations, right, surrounding whenever a case like this is reported, you get the impression that you have a lot of students or you have a lot of young people who shy away to, come out to, report some of these things. I'm sure because of the stigma that comes along with it and the consequences that comes along with it. I mean, yesterday, I personally posted it on my status when, the news broke. And with a number of calls and text messages I got, even some who never had my contact, but then had mutual friends who had access to my status, had to call me and just tell me that, well, it happened to me. I mean, in some cases, some people would, mention the same person in question and all that. So you get the impression and you ask the question, I mean, if this thing happened to you, why don't you just report? I mean, someone will tell you that, well, it happened to me level 400 first semester. And when I actually fought it off, it affected my grades, actually. And so, well, I just want to finish school and leave. I don't want any trouble. And, Koku, I think that we need universities across Ghana need better systems that will serve as a pool of receiving some of these complaints, where these students will be protected. Koku, look, I mean, students have been encouraged, right, to report some of these things, but I don't think we have a system better enough to protect these people after the reportage. And so you realize that a lot of times, you have students who, were so bold enough to report some of these things, coming back to say that, well, after I reported, even the rest of the lecturers in that department decided not to mind me. And you know how it feels, Koku. Yeah. I mean, when you are in the university, you need mentors, you need people who, serve as direction. And because you reported one person, other people would want to, just evade you, And, that's the last thing you would want. That's the last thing. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear crystal clear.
Right. And Koku, so that's the last thing that you would want as a university student.
Okay.
For you to be, evaded by for something that you think you had a good cause to actually do. So I think, answering your question, it's quite rampant.
I see.
Than we actually think it is. But the situation is that because we don't have the system that protects some of these students, they don't feel safe to rather come out. That's the irony, come out to report some of these cases.
Walk me through, if you have any knowledge. People have also said that, well, there's two schools of thoughts, obviously, that will claim that this is high-handed. Some also say that, look, it's too lenient for what, because the psychological stress and trauma that it places on the victim is more than the punishment, the punitive measures that have been meted out here. Tell me about the processes that went through this, for which Dr. Samson Obed Appiah was found guilty, and of course these sanctions meted out. Were they hardcore evidence? What goes through the disciplinary action? What comes of it? And what's the process like?
Yes, Coco, I think that the defining moment in all of this is for us to come to the understanding that there are separate committees that actually, investigate cases like this pertaining to junior members, that is students and, some domestic staff and all that. And also senior members, that is the lecturers and, if you want to go up, the authorities at the tops or at the helms of affairs. And so there are different committees. And we can also understand that every committee, attends to a matter based on their merits and based on the magnitude of, the action that has actually been executed. I think that the problem is not because they are separate committees, but the problems could emanate from lack of consistency in applying some of these sanctions. I mean, for example, yesterday, I engaged a few people, and Coco, that personally, aside activism whatsoever, I had also made a call to contest, at some point as National, Union of Ghana Students President. And so, you have some of these, things burning, within you, that you just want to see the student population, not only the youth, but the student population specifically, having some good stay on campuses. And so you speak to a lot of people and they will tell you that, well, our fellow colleague, was also found guilty on this same sexual harassment, charge, and they were expelled. And so they are quite surprised and shocked at the news coming that a lecturer who should know better, was found, guilty on this particular premise, and but then was handed, 2, semester suspension. But you see, I think that when you want to situate this conversation very well, you have two committees who are actually looking at this two separate things. And you would expect that, I don't want to call it even a crime, should I say a malpractice, right? An academic malpractice like plagiarism, right? Which we understand that anybody who is an educationist or anybody who, had lived in academic discourse community would understand that, it's also seen as one of the biggest crime in academic discourse.
Yes.
That's plagiarism. And so the academicians, and a very good morning to Professor Rosina Chairman, the Dean of Students. Academics like that will not joke when it comes to plagiarism. But when you look at the magnitude, because Coco, nobody goes to prison because of plagiarism, but someone does because of sexual harassment. So when you look at the magnitude of some of these things, and someone who plagiarized his thesis is handed to academic years suspension, and someone who was found guilty on sexual harassment, charge is handed 2 semester, break. I think it when you draw the comparative analysis, it makes the plagiarism charge, more of like a backhand, punishment more than a reformative one. Because we understand that even in worst case scenario, people get their thesis, cancelled for them to rewrite. And a lot of times, just like we have the racist system, when you fail an examination, you are not sacked, you are not given sanction. You are actually being failed and given the opportunity to write a resit. So in a situation like this where a postgraduate student, and I have, exhausted so many avenues in getting in touch with this gentleman. I think that the leads are, about 85%, accurate. And I think that you will have to also personally have that, a face-to-face opportunity to inquire a lot from me. But the difficulty is that if you look at the nature of the sanction, it is nearly impossible for you to actually think that this should actually be a reformative measure. Because for 2 years, not coming to the university as a postgraduate student, it is almost equal to you getting sacked. And I think that if someone is going to get sacked because of plagiarism, and someone who should actually know better, who is a lecturer, who has been found, guilty of sexually harassing a student, is handed over 2-semester, suspension. Koku, I mean, I know there could be more details to this, but on the face value, it doesn't make any sense anyway.
Very interesting. And Frederick is referring to, if you like, the list that we just showed you. So if you look at number 1, Francis Abdul Razak engaging in plagiarism in contravention of the statute of the University of Ghana. And they stated the statutes there, the University of Ghana Handbook for Master's Degree Programs and the regulations governing graduate study and University Examinations 2014 and rules of the University of Ghana Plagiarism Policy 2016. The man, Francis Abdul Razak, has been handed suspension for 2 academic years in accordance with Section 45. The thesis is failed. The students permitted to apply for readmission and granted a waiver for coursework and all of that. But if you go to Dr. Samson Obed Apia, he's just been asked to issue a formal written apology to the complainant, suspension from the University of for 2 semesters, barred from submitting an application for promotion for the next high grade for 1 year, and of course to undergo training on sexual harassment misconduct. And so that's what Frederick is referring to. Frederick, what has been the talk amongst generally the students with regards to what's happening here, with especially Dr. Samson Obed Apia? You have said that quite a number of people, ladies, have also texted you to say that they were either involved with this same man or other people. Are they also ready to open up, come up, report some of these cases? But what has been a general concern amongst the students?
Okay, so Koku, I mean, some of these students who I have the benefit of speaking to, I mean, they currently are not students anymore. I mean, past students who have moving on or getting on with their lives and all that, and I think that for a lot of past students, the last thing they would want to really experience is to have some kind of a scandalous experience with your past university once you are done. And so a lot of times you don't really get them come back to give an impression that they would want to come up. But the jubilation aspect was what scared me. I mean, because Koku, in as much as this could be committee finding and all that. We all know that some people go to prison not because they are guilty, but because they could not have a better representation. Yeah. But you see, in this situation, you had a lot of people who could really immediately, side with the judgment. So some of them who, went to the extreme point of, posting it on their status and thanking God. Wow. I mean, it got that deep. And so I was startled at some point. I was like, well, look. And you had people who also call you and be like, no, I know this person in question. I mean, I don't believe he would actually do that. But, obviously, it won't be written on anyone's forehead anyway. But you see, my interest and my concern has been the number of cases going on that we will be waiting to hear this 5 years later, where someone would actually also come to say that, well, I went through that, but because of stigma and because of this, I could not say it. I think that is a big problem.
I see.
But Koku, one other aspect is that I think that in this country, we have a big problem. And, in as much as we have the big problem, someone would have to step forward to say them. And I think one of them is that whenever there are issues, when we are dealing with authorities or those in the corridors of power, if it is them, they know how to deal with it. If it's the fellow Ghanaians, the ordinary Ghanaian, they find a way to deal with it. And I think that kind of impression fits perfectly well in this scenario as well, where you have some students alluding to the fact that, when it's a lecturer or when it's a senior staff, they handle it with soft gloves. But when it's a student, I mean, it's more high-handed,
What's the position of the Vice Chancellor on this? I mean, she's a woman. I know you have had some very close working relationship with her as well. But what's her general take and stance on some of these issues? I'm saying this because then one would think that then she'll be able to advance some of these conversations, one, to also place systems in place that women, ladies, men who go through this could easily want to come and report. Of course, under her, it will be said that she will not be tolerant if anybody comes to you, and so much so that they will put themselves in check. What has been her position?
Okay, so Koku, I mean, so this particular release came to light only yesterday.
Okay.
And as of now, there has not been any official, document or release from the Vice Chancellor. But looking at the procedure of some of these things or how it goes through, of course, they have the blessings of the Vice Chancellor to set some of this procedure straight. And so you just have to understand that they are just working in the spirit and in the shadow of the Vice Chancellor to ensure that the proper thing is done.
Right.
But in as much as there has not been any official, release to that effect, Professor Nanaba Appiah, for the Vice Chancellor of the university, is someone that for so many occasions, I think that for 2 times we've had symposium that I personally, had the cause to moderate and, interview her for 2 and even more hours that, was a very good one. And I know that one of the things that she has always been very, solid on is women empowerment. I mean, in as much as she cares for the entire student population, I mean, when you listen to her, you get to find out that this is someone who actually, has, issues pertaining to women specifically at heart. And so I know that in due time, she's actually going to come out. But again, even during seminars and during public events and all that, she has actually taken, time off to really, reaffirm her commitment in some of these cases. So it won't be new or it won't be surprising if we should wake up tomorrow morning and there is a release coming from her, reaffirming her commitment in protecting, some of these vulnerable students.
I see. Well, the phone lines are open. We have some few minutes to wrap up. And so for those of you who have, had your friends, families who have been engaged in some of these things or victims of some of these circumstances, you can also call us and all of that. But while we do that, and so you can call us, the numbers are on the screen, you can call us and share with us. Maybe if you yourself have gone through some of these things in the hands of not only lecturers, your bosses and all of that, you can also let us know. There are also times where ladies fake these things. They fake it. I don't know what they want. I don't know what their motive is. Where some good deal of times we've had a number of young people, number of old people also go down the drain because some ladies, some men have also lied that so and so has happened to them. Have you also encountered some of these things?
Yeah, so Koku, just to sneak in this one, you really asked a very good question. Not only the Vice Chancellor is a woman. I mean, currently in University of Ghana, the plot twist is that those in the helms of affairs, I mean, I would say about 95% are actually women, which is actually a good cause for some of us who actually believe in the leadership of women. When I was in Pope John as a prefect, my headmistress actually obviously is a woman, so I had, the taste of, how it feels when a woman is actually leading. We have the Vice Chancellor who is a woman. We have the registrar who is a woman. We have the Dean of Students, my mother herself, Professor Rosina Chermanting. We also have the Academic Director who is a woman. I mean, we have the Public Affairs Director who is a woman. I mean, and so on and so forth. And so I think that these things or this representation should be reflecting when it comes to some of these cases. And for me, my concern has always been the protection. I mean, they will tell you that, freedom of speech, but whatsoever comes along with the freedom of speech are consequences you should ask yourself whether you be willing to bear. But I think that the least thing we can do for these persons is to create an enabling environment that makes them feel safe to come out. Koku, one last point is that if you're a gentleman and you're also listening, men are not left out in harassment as well. I mean, some male students have actually been harassed. I think somewhere around 2015, thereabout, there was an issue like that where a gentleman, level 100 students had come out to say that, well, he was nearly, raped by some female students. And when the issue actually broke, people took time off to actually, mock him. That, hey, like, you're a boy and, you are crying, you're a jump boy, you're this, you're that. So, there is that to that. Just that, Coco, a lot of young men, would not even try to, report some of these cases. Maybe probably because of, the mocking and all that, or, I don't know how to really put it. But I think we should have a rigorous conversation on this thing. And I think that this is just a curtain raiser. And maybe as time goes on, we are actually going to go into that better. But I feel that when you go to several other, residential facilities, the various hall tutors, which a lot of them are also women, are also doing it on that level. Let me put in this particular, because you asked a question. I had, a colleague sometime who was actually a teaching assistant. I'm not going to mention the name of the university. And apparently, whilst he was in school, before finishing, I mean, he was in a dating relationship with a student, which I'm not so sure is against the statutes of the university. I mean that this is someone who had proposed someone, and they are both above 18, and so mutually they were dating. Now, what happens is that this gentleman completes the university, now become a teaching assistant in that same university, and so the dating goes on. Now, he is a TA. The girlfriend is still a student, so the girlfriend visits at the department sometimes, and wants the whole students within the department to know that, yes, my boyfriend is actually a teaching assistant. And so how some of these attachments and things would actually go, the entanglement would actually go. And so, I mean, she approaches this young man who is a TA and try to, deal with him like, you're my boyfriend and all that. One of the days, the TA actually stamps his authority by saying that, hey, don't talk to me like this when I'm in the midst of my students. The lady says, oh, okay, that's fine. She doesn't talk. She gets back to her room. She reports to her roommate that, well, this gentleman sexually harassed me. So it has now moved away from the dating to sexual harassment. I mean, the roommate was, as soon as the roommate was informed, the roommate reported to the hall tutor reported to the school authorities, a committee was set. Now, he was asked to appear before the committee. So he appeared before the committee. After the first sitting, they said they are going to hear from him. Now, later on, this gentleman applies to the law school, for an interview, and so he was actually selected for an interview. Now he gets into the interview and he asks, are you before any committee? Because it's been long, he thought that it's over, so he said, I'm not before any committee. Coincidentally, one member of the committee, of the sitting on the sexual harassment issue, was also, a member of the law faculty, entrance interview, committee. And so decides to pinpoint the guy that, do you remember me? You appeared before the sexual harassment committee. Work out, So some of these things actually, do happen where you have some of these things. But you see, Coco, as a gentleman growing up, you must resist and avoid every single position that actually projects you in that light.
Right.
And because women are the most vulnerable, and children. But when it comes to situations like this, men are also vulnerable because of how rampant it happens. And so it becomes very difficult, even if you are innocent, to prove yourself as such.
Absolutely.
And so that is it. And I also, will say a very big thank you to Dominion TV,
right,
to the rest of your producers who are doing so well. At the back end, they are doing so well. Our viewers, our producers, deserve some raise, because they will tell me, tilt your head like this.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you too. And that's Frederick Brooks, who is a youth activist. We're talking about the sexual harassment issues. This case in point is with the University of Ghana, Legon. Look, you must understand, a no is a no. It doesn't matter, especially you, the men, our colleagues, the young people, with the youthful exuberance and the energy, the adrenaline. A no is a no. Once you even see the lady is turning the head, it's a bit uncomfortable. Brother, wake up. Run out of that place. Bro, run. Don't stay, because the court of public opinion can judge you quicker than if you land in the court. And so thank you very much for your time, Mr. Frederick Brooks. We are grateful. He was helping us understand the issues of the University of Ghana case, where one lecturer and other students have been suspended or, if you like, asked to take a break on several counts of, if you like, malpractices, from sexual harassment to all of that. And so just be careful. We'll take a break at this point. When we come back, the final conversation on modern church is up. Stay with us.